Eric, you got your golden monkey. I'm trying an apple cider vinegar mandarin ginseng tonic. Yeah, it's actually quite delicious. Yeah.
There aren't more flavors in there?
Do you hate your insides?
Well, no, it's apple cider vinegar, water kefir culture.
Like Kiefer Sutherland?
Yeah.
Does he do commercials for it?
Is it not kombucha?
It is. Well, I don't know what it is. It's probiotic something. I'm working on getting the abs back, so I'm doing all the things. Went back to paleo, doing this stuff. Vegan occasionally.
Hunting dinosaurs. Cool,
yeah.
cool.
It's a big to-do. I like your bolo tie, Eric. What is that?
Thank you. It's a ram.
Yeah, it is.
Ram tough.
Nice.
He's ram tough.
Ram tough.
Yeah.
Are you streaming this to YouTube or no?
No, because
Okay.
I set it up today on the Smoking Hot Nerds on YouTube. So, folks, in case you didn't know, we have our very own YouTube page, Smoking Hot Nerds Podcast, and but it takes 24 hours for it to enable so that we can live stream it.
Gotcha.
So next week, I'll try to promote it a little bit. We'll try to live stream it. It'll be fun.
I'll try not to wear a T-shirt. Cool.
Well, I'm
going to have questions, people throwing questions.
Oh, that'd be a good idea.
Live chat? Oh, that'd be... Oh, God.
That'd be kind of cool. That'd be fun. See how that works out.
I'll have to see if I can figure out how to get a second monitor so I can have that stuff up and running.
Oh, yeah. To figure that out, because you got to monitor what's going on over there on YouTube while we're doing our thing here while streaming, right? Yeah. So I want to set the stage for our listeners today. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about the Transformers movies in general, but also the most recent Transformer film, Bumblebee. And when we were trying to decide what to do for this week, Nick texted us and said, "Hey, boys, what are we going to talk about this week?" And we kind of tossed around some ideas, and then Eric jokingly said, "Why don't we do Bloodshot, the newest Vin Diesel film?" And we were like, haha, not really. So I was thinking something cultured was going to come through the airwaves, come down the tube. But instead we decided on Bumblebee.
Bumblebee!
I think the best part of the text was that you also said that you thought you were intrigued by the film. What was intriguing about it to you?
So what intrigued... Well, because I watched the trailer and I went, oh, look, it looks like a Transformers movie that's not full of, like, vitriol like all the Michael Bay movies. And so I said, oh, this one looks like it has heart, way back when it came out. I didn't watch it. And then one of my friends out here who's I wouldn't say he's completely cynical. Like, he likes certain movies with heart or whatever. And then he like, loved this movie. A couple weeks back, he was texting everyone. He's like, it's great. I love it. So I was like, all right. So, yeah. I said, hey, let's do it. And we'd already brought up, Nico, you had already kind of talked about Bumblebee. And I know one of your issues with it in terms of fitting into the franchise. And I feel like I've just made fun of Michael Bay here and there. So seemed like a good way to just go ahead and get it out and finish it.
Right.
Yeah.
Nico, were you intrigued by the film when it debuted? Hold on a second.
I was honestly curious because the existing Transformers films started strong. I mean, for what they're supposed to be, they started strong, and then they had some good ideas, and then it just went off the rails as far as structure and direction and just not trying to make money. I mean, the whole like Romeo Juliet law thing from like the third or fourth one is just like an unnecessary platform to talk about statutory rape. That's all I'm going to say. You don't need a kids movie
and to say it's cool.
Yeah, and to be like,
no,
it's fine.
Okay.
There are laws that make this okay. So that's when like it went off the rails for me, because it was like, oh god, because I thought, like I said, the first couple, I thought they had solid like story ideas. I thought they had a good, they were exactly what they needed to be, but they had a story that could carry it through. So you're like, all right, this is a little weird, but you're sticking to your guns. I'm good with this. Let's just power through. And then that just started happening, and it was like, what in the world? So when this one came out, because we had, is it 4 3 or 4 previous films.
4, I think.
Because there's like 1, and then
5?
there's like Dark Side of the Moon,
5.
and then there's like Revenge of the Fallen,
Yikes.
and there
The
might
Last Night or something.
There's the night.
the one with Marky Mark.
There's 2 with Marky Mark.
Mm-hmm.
Oh
Make it
God.
2.
The statutory rape one, and then another one.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
That was a
yeah,
great
because
poster.
it's two with LaBeouf, right?
Transformers, the statutory rape one.
Because it's 2 with LaBeouf and then 2 with Marky Mark, right?
Mm-hmm.
So 4 total. Yeah.
No,
So-
there's like 3 with. Sorry,
We should have done our research
there's so
before
many of them.
What's sad is like they're probably sitting on my shelf over there, I think. But so like I said, they just were like, this is a moneymaker, but we really don't have any good ideas. So what do we do? So this one, Bumblebee, intrigued me because they had done, in the last couple of them, they had really gone into the history of Cybertron and where the Transformers came from and all this stuff. So, I mean, they showed photos of Bumblebee and serving in World War II, that kind of thing. So they're like, all right, so how do you... My impression of it going on was this is just like his story, not what I believe it truly is a re-universing, a reboot of Transformers, because this one chronologically does not fit into the existing the prior films.
Doesn't seem to.
It's literally like you've got on one side you have like the Michael Bay Transformers, and then on this side you've got Travis whatever's Transformers.
Travis Knight, yeah.
Yeah, Travis Knight's Transformers. It's kind of like what they did with Spider-Man, where you've got like the Tobey Maguire Spider-Mans, and you have the Andrew Garfield Spider-Mans, and in one of them he's all about Mary Jane, and in one of them he's all about Gwen Stacy. So it's like it's that kind of thing where
And then you've got the
they've
Marvel
literally just
Spider-Man.
yeah,
The
and
not
right,
Fox, yeah.
right, all that. So it's like I don't know if they just incorrectly pitched it as like, oh, this fits right in, but it definitely doesn't. Like chronologically, it's totally out.
I don't know
order.
that they cared.
No, it was
Oh
just
no,
money
and
grab.
I have examples of what I can tell you. I know they didn't care. We can get into it, but if this was the
we will.
first one that came out, I would probably still be as jazzed about it as I was the original Transformers, because I thought it was like, without trying to fit it into the box of the existing films, I think this it's pretty good. It has flaws, but it's entertaining.
One or
It's a good
two
time.
or
Yeah.
Yeah,
70.
I enjoyed the heck out of it.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, so-
tell us more, Eric. What did you enjoy about it?
Yeah. And I don't know if it is just because it's such a stark contrast to the Michael Bay ones in feeling. I think that's what it is. I think the whole time watching it, I'm just comparing it, like tone-wise, how the characters feel, how they come off, just everything about it. And I kind of went, oh, this is what I want from a Transformers. A nice little story that's not jammed full of things. And I don't know, I'll probably talk more about Michael Bay. And I think what makes it hard for me to watch Michael Bay movies and how he deals with characters. And so to watch this movie and not have any of that and just be a complete reset, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, one thing I dug too about this one, in a difference to Michael Bay, is that Michael Bay was just all about building destruction porn. And so, like, they would go into cities and just waylay cities. And in this one, there is fighting, there is robot fighting, and people do die. But it's not like they parade through downtown San Francisco and melt the Golden Gate with thousands of people on it. It's they fight, but it's outside of like collateral damage.
Right.
I mean, like I said, there are people that are collateral damage. There are civilians that die, but it's not.
But you
it's
can
not
remember
irresponsible.
their faces
Right.
in this one.
Right.
The other movies, you're just like, I'm going to assume 500,000 people died. I don't know, I
Yeah,
guess.
those 6 buildings that
Kinda
just
like
fell down
Marvel.
in the back. Yeah, I'm assuming those weren't empty.
Right.
Right.
I think that one thing that made it different in that respect was, even though there was robot fighting, you could tell the robots apart. In the first few films, especially the first one, because I think we all might have gone to the first Transformers together. It was like 2007, or at least I went with somebody, and it was
possibly.
like it was just a massive CGI metal that you couldn't even distinguish what was going on.
Yeah,
this was
they
much
didn't-
more cleaner, crisper. The lighting was better. The fake lighting, that aspect of it was much better.
And they definitely reset it to look. They pushed it back a little bit more towards cartoon.
Right.
Look and aesthetic, and even the characters. Like, you look at the characters and kind of right off the bat, you're like, it's that one, it's this one, it's whoever.
Yeah.
And yeah, where Michael Bay again just Michael Bay'd all over the other ones, and was like, Optimus Prime, he needs flames, put flames on him, and he needs this and that, and you're like, okay.
Well, yeah, they did. The thing
Everything
with
needs flames.
the other ones too is that all the cameras were pushed way in. So you got these really tight, intricate animations of them transforming, and they would have like what felt like a 30-second transformation scene, and then a minute later he would jump off a bridge and instantly transform into a semi. It's like, wait, so is it takes like 2 minutes to happen, or it's instant, which you can't.
Well, they're
have
showing off
both.
Nico.
Yeah,
Right.
It's one of those like my stupid brain. Episode 2. Like, the logistics of that stuff kills me, and
Sure.
And because I think this is the second time I watched it, I was not going in to poke holes at it, but just to make mental notes of things I wanted to talk about. And one of the things that got me right away was how they're on Cybertron, but they're already in the shapes that we're familiar with.
Yeah,
and it's like
Bumblebee's a car.
Yeah, and it's
you're like,
what
why
is your
would they
point
know?
of reference if you've never been to Earth? How do you how are you, at least with the other Transformers ones, prior to them coming to Earth, they were just metal beings. They were just metal humanoid, like super humanoid type things, and then only then when they saw our transportation did they transform. This one,
Is that how it works?
It literally opens with a battle.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have to like,
at
it's
least
like
in the
urban
movies,
camouflage.
that's what they established.
They look at
Gotcha.
our vehicles and they camouflage themselves, transform. But this one, yeah, like the movie starts off with a battle on Cybertron, and already the guy's like the cassette player with the little guy inside, and one guy's a jet, and it's just like, so you've been to Earth then, or no?
Maybe there are other planets with jets and cars.
And
That's what I would assume. And that's what I would assume, anyways.
Sure, yeah, that's why I let it go, because it's like
Cybertrans, the transportation planet that's full of cars and trucks and stuff. Yeah.
the bus planet.
I mean, we are starting with the premise that these things exist. So, at that point, that there is a planet called Cybertron.
But I get that it kind of goes into the like, you set up rules and then you're breaking your own rules type of thing.
Right.
So,
I see.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm with
but
that.
if we're looking at this as it is a reboot, a restart, a kickoff to a new timeline for the series, then maybe that's why that could potentially make sense. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is a tucked away planet called Earth. It was an interesting thing because, like you said about the cartoon, that was exactly what I thought right out the gate. Was the pacing, the dialogue. It was a kids movie, like straight up in pretty much every way. Just the adult relationships were just super trite, and the kid immediately had an emotional connection to Bumblebee. So all of these things were very cartoony, but what was cool too was that the way that the Transformers transform, in particular the helicopter and the jet bad guys, they transformed like the cartoon used to, and so it didn't feel like it was being forced into this. Look how amazing our CGI looks. It was as if the CGI was emulating what we felt when we watched the cartoon. Thought that was probably the strength of it. Was it did feel a little bit like the 80s cartoon in just the feel and the music and the sensibility and everything about it. I mean, it was a massive dumpster fire of a movie, but but there were things that were enjoyable about it.
I love it.
It wasn't that bad.
Like, I think we talked about this when we first talked about it. Another thing that's just a glaring thing is they have the establishing shot, and then it says 1987, and then it cuts into John Cena and his buddies having a little paintball tournament, and then a Hummer shows up, which wasn't even, I looked it up because this is how bad it is, not even commercially available until 1992, and the ones that they were using were like version 4, which was like late 90s at best. So it's
that was very, very obvious
even
right
paintball.
away, and it was such a bummer because when they started it, and I was okay. So I'll give you just a little. We'll come back to this for a second, but so last night you guys said let's watch Bumblebee. I pooped my pants. I said fine, I'll do it. And so I got home after shooting some stuff here at the studio, went home, and I had this idea for a video I wanted to shoot today. And I was just like, I can't watch Bumblebee. Like, that's going to be the worst artistic inspiration. But I didn't want to let you guys down. So I actually signed up for Hulu. So I already had Disney Plus. I already had ESPN Plus. And Hulu is the only other place I could watch the movie for free because I have an Amazon Business subscription, and it doesn't have Prime. Anyway, long story short, I started watching it. Watched it right up till the girl is drumming as she's brushing her teeth, which, by the way, is about 14 minutes into the movie.
Yeah, right.
And I shut it off. I couldn't anymore. I was like, no, I'm not doing this before I shoot something of my own. But then I felt terrible, so I got up this morning, I came over here, I started working, and then I watched it so that I could actually have an informed opinion.
I was really hoping that you're like, I hate this movie. Well, I only watched the first 10 minutes. But.
Right. I was thinking about it, but no, I wasn't going to do that to you guys. But the first thing that made me mad right out the gate was first of all, okay, so I'm not a military expert. I'm not an expert on any of these things, but there are very specific tactical ways that our soldiers are trained over the course of history. There was a movie some time ago, and I forget what the name was, but it was a World War II movie, and all of the soldiers walking around were holding their guns in a manner in which our guys in desert combat hold them. It's a very specific way that they held very close to the chest, very high, so that you can have a very quick. It was not a means that we used weapons in the 40s. They were using that same way of holding their guns right at the beginning of this movie. So I looked it up and I tried to find pictures of soldiers even as late as like 1993, 1994. The guns were not correct. The costumes certainly not correct. And as you said, the Humvee not correct. I don't even know if paintball existed in 1984.
Yeah, paintball itself, I was like,
not at that level, no. Yeah. Or that style, no.
So it was a big bummer because that's easy. Like that's just a Google search. That's not even a costume
it took me less than
issue.
2 minutes to Google search it. Yeah. So
yeah, that has to be a straight up like, whatever, we don't care.
Because go back and just watch Navy SEALs or something. Go watch
really
the Charlie Sheen.
Yeah.
No, and that's the thing. It's easy. Just go back to movies from the 80s and just emulate that because they wanted to do that through the whole thing, right?
Yeah, because it's definitely a nostalgia movie for sure. They're on the bandwagon of, hey, it's the 80s.
Yeah, they're leaning into it. Yeah,
let's do it. Here's all the songs you remember. Blah blah. Yeah, it's doing that like so many other things do now.
Yeah,
it's Stranger Thingsing itself for sure. So yeah, it's like
it was total nostalgia porn.
It was riddled with that because it made me start looking for like every time a song came on, the soundtrack. I was looking to see if it had been released yet. And there's one where they do when she's up on the cliff top and Bumblebee bumps her and he starts playing It Takes Two. That came out in 1989 or 88 or something like that.
Yeah.
When he walked into his room and he had the movie posters, it made me laugh because I don't know if those style of movie poster existed, but then it was definitely somebody was like popular movies 1982 because it was like Raiders of the Lost Ark and The Thing. And it's like, we're gonna get that one right, guys.
And see, that's rough because it's just for one, those are just layups. You should be able to just do that. But what is so weird about because there are people who, and I know people, and Eric, you're one of them, who professionally does set dressing, props, costumes for a living. And you have to be at a very high level and understand that if I was going to make a movie set in 2020, like the shirt I'm wearing right now is like 5 years old. Yeah. So you can't say that this is a 2020 fashion or whatever. That's just that's what's very frustrating about that is everything is like the year that it was made. It's like, no, if she was listening to music in 1987, she maybe is listening to Cyndi Lauper or whatever else, but it might be Cyndi Lauper's album from 1984 or whatever, or it's just there's just so much specificity that is overly specific when you need to create the world with like 30 years of history in the set. Does that
Right.
make sense? I don't know.
And yeah, it happens often. It's funny. I've had this conversation with my roommate. This exact thing, and for him, yeah, he always gets pissed off. And he's like, "Where's all the old cars? There should be a
Right.
car from the '60s.
Yeah.
Old people should be wearing old style clothes. Like, what's the deal here? Everything's not from like whatever magazine that said something.
Yeah.
This is what 1987 is. Yeah, the world's much bigger. And I don't know if it just comes down to a production designer in all of these scenarios going, okay, we know there would be all this stuff, but we want to just make it, this is our style. And so we're gonna, people didn't really dress like this. It's all like rose tinted glasses, but this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna make this age cool.
Right.
When the reality of anything, you're like, everyone looked like dorks. No one was this cool looking.
Everyone did look like a dork, but they did do that well. I thought in the movie was the San Diego, the pier, that whole sort of that 80s movie summer vibe was cool, was done well. I just get but there's inaccuracies in, like, one of them is Argo, the Ben Affleck film.
Yep.
Love that movie. And there's a scene, and it's a super cool part of the movie where in that era, the Hollywood was pretty rough and wasn't doing great. And so there's a flyover the Hollywood sign, and it's sort of deteriorated, and it was before the restoration. But the year that the movie took place, the restoration had already taken place like 4 years before that.
Yeah.
So they were kind of fudging that part of it, and I get it. You wouldn't know that unless you researched it or cared.
Right.
So you do that a lot in movies, where you kind of push it around a little bit, I guess. And of a popcorn family, film, it's probably not that important.
Yeah, and two, the visuals are helping to support whatever the story is. So unless you're a director that really cares about these things, more than likely they're making choices that they just go, yeah, this feels right for what we're doing. This, and that's all that matters.
Well, and it's weird how very perceptive of 1987 they were versus how they weren't. Because like one of the big things in the movie is the Decepticons essentially create the internet.
Right.
So nobody's on a mobile phone, nobody's on a laptop, whatever. They basically create the internet to find Bumblebee, which that's really self-aware. Good job.
Yeah.
And then there's there's other stuff where they just let it slide. Like she's wearing like a Motorhead T-shirt or something.
Right.
And it's like, didn't that album's not old enough for that shirt to be that dirty and faded.
Right.
Or like she's rattling through her little cassette tapes, and one of them was literally like 1987, but it looked like it had been in that box for 5 years.
Nice and dusty.
Already. And it's like, I get it, man, but they basically just walked in and said, I need a layer of dust on this because this whole garage is dusty, call it a day. And the guy's like, spray.
Well, that was
done.
a question too. Maybe I missed it, but it was at 1987 right out the gate, like right.
Oh yeah,
right when we got to Earth.
There's an establishing shot. That's boom, 1987.
So how did Bumblebee get so dirty? Can he make himself look like that when he's hiding in the junkyard? Can he make himself dirty so that he seems old and dust covered, or was he there for 10 years?
Well, yeah, no, that's a good point. I mean, I think part of it was supposed to be just the location of a junkyard, really, because the last time we see him, he passes out on the beach, which don't even get into the how do you go from the side of a lake to a junkyard in San Diego or Brightvale or wherever the hell they were.
Yeah.
You got 2 hours, I'll tell you.
Yeah,
how.
don't even make that leap of how you go from there to there, especially since when he passed out, he was still in Autobot form, right? Like the last thing he does is he scans the bug.
Yeah, it looks like he's about to die, right?
Yeah, and then his memory cores fail.
Yeah.
But there's no like, they don't make the sound. So for all we know, he's still robot form, passed out on the side of this lake or whatever. So yeah, ignoring how he goes from there to this tiny little scrapyard in the middle of nowhere, and then covered by a sheet with a special reveal where she tips the boat over.
Right.
So there's a lot of that stuff that like you just have to literally let slide, because don't even go down the rabbit hole trying to figure that out. It just helps move the story forward.
Well, it's a lot of things about movies that it was very much all the things about movies that I don't like, and just in the sense that, but the thing is, but it's very much the thing that makes movies movies. So that's what's kind of weird about it. Clearly defined paths, clearly defined, like you know who the good guy is, who the bad guy is, who the hero is. You know all these things, and then the nerdy scientist who's going to get duped, and you just know all of the tropes. And
100%.
so that's very important in a script, to make sure that all of your characters are clearly defined, and that their motivations are clear, and that they have a story arc or whatever. So those are very important things. But the way that a movie like this unfolds it and unveils it is what makes me not want to watch them, and makes me, because I feel like I'm gonna be kind of like worse at my job by watching a Bumblebee movie over watching Wes Anderson, where I'm like, oh, that was cool how he did that, you know.
Sure.
Because then I'm just gonna go, like, just gonna fall, because all the shots are the same. There's no interesting shot. There wasn't so much as a freaking like body wipe to get to the next scene. It was just all just like you know, establishing you know, 2-shot close up, and we're out. Like, it was just that all day long. Lit exactly perfectly, exactly how it should be lit, and just very, like, nothing was shot
by the numbers.
Yeah, nothing was shot with great depth of field. It was just all just, you know, everything in focus. I don't know. It's just not artistic. But the thing is, those are the basics, and it follows the basics very well, and it makes for a fantastic popcorn movie if that's what you're in the mood for.
Well, and that's what it was designed to do. Like it was designed to assist viewers in mowing through a box of popcorn.
Yeah, yeah.
It wasn't more. It wasn't supposed to do anything more than that.
And I would say I would be curious what the feeling was, because Michael Bay and Spielberg still produced this. So it's still kind of it's still in their domain. So I'm curious. I mean, I imagine Michael Bay just kind of got tired of directing Transformers and went, I want to do something else. Makes sense. And so then that's why, you know, I'm just curious what that conversation was that said, okay, let's kind of retool this.
I would imagine that's what it sounds like. They had the rights to it, and I'm sure the studio was providing pressure that said, "Hey, we need a summer cash movie. I need you to figure this out." Transformers has done well in the past, and he was probably creatively just like, "Man, I got into statutory rape and I crossed the line. You know, I got
once
nowhere
I go
else to
there."
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be Silence of the Lambs with robots at some point.
Used them all. Used all the topics, all the things
so
that I'm passionate about.
I think he literally
everything.
His producing credit was probably a check, a signature, and a nod. Really,
yeah. Well, I find it interesting too that
not mad at that.
The director Travis Knight.
I'm so happy that he got the hell out of the way, frankly.
Right. Yeah.
Because I'll talk more about my feelings on Michael Bay and his characters.
Well, let's talk about it now. 'Cause I don't think that it improved anything.
Yeah, we're good.
I don't think that this was an improvement, because the director has not directed. He directed that fantastic kids movie, the Kubo and the Night, or whatever it was called. It was that sort of,
the Two Strings.
Yeah. So he directed that, which I've watched it a few times because I have, 4 and 5-year-old nephews. Cool movie. Don't watch it too closely. Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
You're just kind of like, wait, what?
Oh, it's
you're watching
movie.
it for the animation. Because the stop motion is breathtaking.
Yeah, so good. But anyways, I mean, that's all he's directed. And he's produced a few things and stuff. But I mean, that would be like me walking onto a feature film and being like, well, what did he direct? And I was like, well, 50 YouTube videos. So I don't know. That wouldn't be much to say, but, I don't know what else he's done. But that is a huge leap to go from a stop motion movie that probably took 4 years to make to a Transformers movie. So, but anyways, you have strong feelings, Eric, about Michael Bay.
So I think the big thing that the contrast from this movie versus like the Michael Bay movies in general, is I feel like when Michael Bay approaches characters, where a lot of people say, oh, okay, this person's an intellectual, or this person's kind of a jock, or this, or, whatever way they want to do it, or this person's emotional, this person's cold. I think he comes to every character as, are they an alpha or are they a beta?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And that's where he starts. And then from there he goes, well, okay, if they're an alpha, what kind of alpha? Are they an a-hole alpha? Are they a cool alpha? And if they're a beta, are they a beta trying to be an alpha? Are they a... And, like, that's the filter that everything goes through for him. And it's like, it makes me not like any of his characters, like, at all.
It's exhausting.
It's exhausting.
Yeah.
And it's there's like a sterileness to it, and the acting that he gets from the actors is like weird, because they're usually aggressive in some way.
Yeah, they're wrongly aggressive. Like in situations that do not require aggression,
Right.
that's their go-to. It's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, so it's that. Oh yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say John Cena was kind of that in this, though. Like, right out the gate, you're like, okay, slow your roll. That scene where they discovered, I forget what it was, a scientist or somebody walks into his office, hey, we found more of them, and he just like grabs his gun and cocks it and puts it in. I was like, well, okay, hang on now. First of all, your gun's already loaded if you're a major or whatever you are, and it's sitting there with one in the chamber. And second of all, where was it? Was it like in your drawer? You just pulled it out and then you're gonna put it on? It's like, that's not how any of this works. But continue.
It's very cartoony, for sure.
And that's the thing. It did.
This movie is a live action cartoon.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, that's what I get. Yeah, you watch a Michael Bay movie and just, oh boy. So this movie I watch and I go, well, the other thing about Michael Bay movies, which I always joke, is that they're just like coke-addled. It's just like snort giant pile of cocaine, and it's like, just do it harder. And so something will happen. I feel like he goes, cut, and 5 times faster. And when you do it this time, we need to see a tear, okay? You need to have your big moment, and you need a tear. And when that tear hits, I have 3 F-16s that are going to fly over you, okay? Right. So make sure that bleeping tear is on cue, because we don't get these just for very long. And action! And that's like the scenario. And you watch these movies and you're just like, oh, what's happening? Yeah. That's just chaos. And it's just total like chaos. This brutal chaos. And so I watched this movie, and just the fact that it just sits back and it just lets some characters, even, it is very paint by number for sure. Mm-hmm. There's nothing the cinematography, there's nothing wildly creative about any of it. But my goodness, I'm just like, oh, okay, I can feel like I can enjoy Transformers. And if this is going for nostalgia, I can feel like I can enjoy this. I don't have to feel like, ugh. And then, because, this movie's under 2 hours. I feel like every Transformer movie's like 5 hours is how long they feel. Yeah. And by the end, you're like, they're going to blow up another city now? Didn't they just blow up 3 already?
I remember walking out of the first one and my ears were ringing. I just was like, this wasn't healthy. I was like, popped my ears after this movie. That's not good.
Yeah. The second movie, me and friends, we got ready in the parking lot before we went in. At the beginning, it's like, oh, this is great. And then the movie was so long that we all sobered up, almost fell asleep, like kind of come back through, and it's into the final act. And it was like, oh my God, there's still like another 40 minutes of this.
Because at the end of this one, that's what I thought. So at the end of the whole battle, and you got the flames everywhere, and then they kind of drive off after they have their little, chit chat with John Cena. I 1,000,000% thought that there was like more, that a bigger, badder robot was going to show up, something else, because it was only like 1:38 at that point. 1 hour 38 minutes, and I'm like, okay, well, I mean, I'm still in it for the long haul here, so we're gonna figure this out. And then the movie was pretty much over. I was like, well, look at you guys growing up.
Look at you having restraint.
When to pull the plug. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And too, the action in this, because it was so much more minimal, it was I don't know. I could remember it. Let me put it that way. I can remember what happened in this movie action-wise. Not saying it's amazing, but those Transformer other movies, I get done and I'm like, my brain's mush and I don't remember anything that happened.
I have no recollection
it's overload.
of anything. The only things that I can actually remember, honest to goodness, of any of the Transformer movies are, one, I think the first movie, Shia LaBeouf is for some reason given the special rock stone thing in the midst of this massive robot battle. They're like, give it to the little human, run with it, and that was just like
Run, monkey.
Yeah. Of course the gratuitous Megan Fox and then Jason Statham's now wife shots at the beginning of their moments, and then that museum in Australia museum in Australia.
It's in Milwaukee.
It's in Milwaukee. Yeah, it looks like Australia.
It's like
on
the art
water.
museum in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
That's an awesome building.
Literally the only things I can remember. Otherwise, I have no recollection of those films, and I've seen them all.
Oh, which I love that because Megan Fox gets fired because she calls Michael Bay a Nazi, which is wonderful. And then he brings her back and like punishes her by being on those Ninja Turtle movies. But you can tell that she's supposed to be the grown-up kind of that woman in the third movie, because it's like this woman who's like worked up in the automobile industry, and she has her own like Elon Musk guy who becomes the villain, and he's into her, and so yeah, that was all fascinating.
I think just overall, though, Transformers movies are a really great indication of they're sort of just an earmark in how far cinema has come, even from the first one. That first one was made in a time where we were at the peak of CGI. That was where it was at the point which finally we can do anything, like literally anything. And so that was an earmark there was a page turn, I guess, in film, where Jurassic Park was the page turn before that, where it was like, okay, we had just under 100 special effects shots. Oh my, that's crazy. And so well integrated into the film. Okay, turn the page. Now we're at Transformers. Now, hopefully, we're turning the page on some version of restraint, some version of let's back it off a little bit, try to have a nice integration of the two elements.
We've had
it
our
looked like they
cake
did.
and we're fat off it. So
Yeah.
It looks like they did, at least some of the scenes look like they built physical prop, not all digital. Or again, this is where they spent a weird amount of attention to detail of like eye lines, like sight lines lining up and keeping relative scale and size.
Yeah.
There's a lot of times with
really
CG
good
stuff. Like one of the things I learned in my early days was when doing purely CG things, like scale is important, because when you create something, you want it to feel like it's 10 feet tall. If it's supposed to be 10 feet tall, not have the digital model be 1,000 feet tall. So if you were to drop in like a tree next to it, all of a sudden it's like astronomically larger. So getting the scale right is super hard to do, but it's important. And especially like I thought this one did a great job of, I think where the early ones kind of said like, screw you. That's why they pushed the camera in, because they're like, look, we can make those rotating gears. If you were to make them, these are like 25 feet across. You know, in order to get all the intricate grinding and turning and twist, we need to make these things monsters so that the computer can process the size, because it's easier to process larger scale than it is to process smaller scale, because the math is so much bigger when things are bigger, which I know sounds counterintuitive, but that's just how computer blah, blah, blah. So this one I thought was super good, that instead of doing that, they backed it out. So you could see how much bigger some of these Decepticons were to Bumblebee, which only just reinforced the strength of that character. Like they rarely were looking eye to eye when they were fighting. It was always like crotch to eye, if you will.
Yeah.
But I thought that was super good from a visual effects standpoint, that they did manage to maintain the scale. And every time he was with Haley Steinfeld, their scale and proportion always felt right too. Now, ignoring the fact that a 15-foot robot converts down into a 6-foot VW Beetle with no mass change, we'll ignore all that for a moment. But other than that, I thought it was really, really, from that standpoint, super well done.
Yeah, the eyeline thing was actually something that I noticed right away, where in the scene when she discovers him and they start having their conversation, there's something really specific about eyeline that makes or breaks your moment with your full CG character. And whatever they were using as her reference point, she was locked on. It was super accurate. It looked great. Yeah. And it's also interesting because if I don't know if you guys remember, so episode 1, Phantom Menace, there are some
I don't
scenes,
remember anything.
I haven't seen it. What are we talking about? Is this, there's that Star Trek?
It's a Star Wars movie.
Okay.
This guy named George, he made these movies. We'll talk
the
about
Phantom Menace.
Yeah, and we'll bring him up in some episode, I'm sure. At some point in time, we'll talk about him.
We'll get there.
We'll see. And it was the first thing that I noticed in that movie was the Jar Jar Binks stuff. Somehow they screwed the eyeline up,
right,
to the point where Ewan McGregor and Liam Neeson were looking almost at like the tops of his eyes, as opposed to, because when I'm looking at you, I'm looking like at one eyeball or the other, or like at your nose, bridge of your nose.
Yeah, like right.
That's how you look at people. Eyeline, yeah, and they were looking
just
almost too far up.
Off. Yeah,
like eyebrows.
Yeah. So they set it up so that it was looking at the eyebrows, and so it really took me out of the movie. So that was something that I really noticed about this. I was like, oh, the scale's good, and I'm not a CG expert by any stretch, but it's interesting because I think that a lot of films literally build their characters to scale in the 3D world within the computer set, so that when they're rendering these, CG characters, they, like you said, they are truly that size in the CG world, so that you have a proper ratio, and so that they're always the right size up against each other.
Oh yeah, my instructor in school, for all of our exams, so especially for our final exam, he took our files, put them up on the projector, loaded it into Studio Max, and then dropped in a 1 foot square, a 2 foot square, and a 6 foot square. He dropped them into our scenes, and that was like one of his checkboxes. Like that was like a pass fail. Like if you dropped it in and the car that you rendered was 90 times larger than the 6 foot box, fail. Or the opposite. If it was microscopic compared to the 1 foot box, fail. So yeah, he drilled that into us. Because this is a small tangent. He was a forensic animator, which sounds like a really cool job. But his job in Denver was to, when they needed to create renderings for court cases or for the news or whatever, to digitally show what had occurred in like car accidents or industrial accidents, they have a plug-in to Studio Max which applies physics. So you have to design digitally to scale for then this physics engine to sit on top of it and react appropriately. Because if you don't, if you build a monster building and you throw a 60 or 100 mile an hour gale force wind at it, it's not going to move. If you build this tiny little matchbox and you put 100 mile an hour wind on it, it's going to blow off the screen. So his thing was always just, if it's not accurate and to scale, you fail. Like almost his lines exactly. So he drilled it in. So seeing stuff that I always look for it to make sure, because there are some definitely where you can tell, especially with the other films too, where they, and I don't blame them, but they shopped scenes out to various visual effects houses and said, okay, you've got this scene, here's the general models, this is what we want it to do, go. And then this group did this, and so you're just getting different artistic touches literally on it. And some of those are literally, okay, you want this thing to spin around, fly, jump off a building, do all this stuff. I'm not going to worry if he's not like 5 foot to 7 foot. Like they're going to look at each other in the eye, and you're just, because that's not what you're looking at here. So I'm just ignoring all that. I'm going to put the model straight in, boom, 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 call it a day. And like, just
we got this much money, we got this much time, and get her done.
Yeah, but we do that in film all the time, though, where we force a perspective or put the actress up on an apple box because we need her shoulder in the shot, and she's that much shorter than the other actress. We just do that kind of stuff all the time. So if you play with the camera well enough, you get away with it. But the perspective thing, it's funny. I watched that entire series, The Staircase, on Netflix. Did you guys see that? It's
Remember you mentioning it? but I
yeah,
didn't.
it's interesting. It's a documentary that was started in 2001, I think, when this author's wife had died, and he gets accused of her murder. But there's this whole, and so this French documentary filmmaker started making the documentary because he read a headline on a magazine, flew over to the States, started this thing. Well, it turns out that I think the last episode they shot was when he was finally, the final decision came down in like 2015. So we're talking 15 years of this craziness. Maybe 2018. It might have been even longer. But either way, there was a forensic, basically a guy who built a functioning CG model of the place where this woman died. And yeah, he was very, very practical, like you said about it, where he's just like, no, based upon the structure of this space, just watch my little computer model of her. This is how it happened. That's it. That's the only way I can make her die the way that she died is by having her fall down the stairs. Literally,
As a
the only
velociraptor.
way. Yeah,
That's the only way.
Right. Well, if you look it up on Wikipedia, weirdly enough, one of the theories is that she might have gotten attacked by an owl. Because like her head was her scalp was like ripped apart, and she died like of obviously massive bleeding, but it was like ripped apart, not like because the
Like
Not like a
clawed.
stab.
yeah
Yeah.
the prosecution said that he like hit her over the head with things, and it's basically like this service, like an old mansion house, and it's basically like a service. What do you call that? Service stairway. So for maids and stuff from like the late 1800s, like that's what it was like. This like super sharp turn, and the wonderful thing is they had this blood spatter guy who was his is like this Japanese like just super no nonsense guy, and he's just like you can't hit someone right here. You just can't. It's physically impossible. It's this little tiny staircase.
In the space, you don't have the space. Yeah.
But the amount of blood that was there, it was just like bonkers how much blood was there. But what was also interesting, and I can't imagine how they left this out because it's like a 40,000 hour documentary, but that he and his wife had just spent the evening hanging out. They drank 2 bottles of wine together. She was on Prozac and some other drug,
boy.
Valium,
And they
maybe?
didn't put this in?
And it's not in the documentary anywhere as far as like information. I was like, well, yeah, dude, she bled out. Like her skin was thin.
She's on so much paint,
She was
blood
high
thinners.
and drunk. And the second her head popped open, all the blood was just like, get me out of here. And that was it. Like, but there's something interesting that happens in family situations like this is they want to shed the best light on the victim. Because it doesn't serve them or their reputation or her reputation after death to say, no, she and my dad used to drink 2 bottles of wine a night, and they're smoking cigarettes and who knows what else, and she's on like 4 different prescription drugs, and she'd been probably drunk since 5 p.m. that night.
Yikes.
So just all this stuff was like, well, she's a little bit of a drug addict, a little bit of an alcoholic, and that's kind of why she died, because she slipped down the stairs, and it sucks. But that's the truth.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's just weird that was probably the reason why she died, was because her blood was crazy thin and she just popped her head open, and that was that, because what happens a lot of I don't know if there's a great TikTok. I know you guys aren't on TikTok. There's a great TikTok I saw, and it was someone's security camera of these 2 like older, like in their 50s or 60s, drunk couple like walking in and trying to go up their stairs and couldn't make it, and the dude
I've
is
seen that
halfway,
video,
and he just
yeah.
like crashes down the stairs. I'm like,
Oh.
it happens. People trip down their own
yeah.
stairs all the time because they've had too much wine, a little bit of wine, Anyways, that was a tangent. That's not a Transformers movie.
No, I was trying to figure out how to segue this back in, and all I could think of was another thing that this movie was missing, and I think it's because it didn't have Michael Bay, was in all the previous movies, there was always some sort of like juvenile toilet humor where like there's in the second or third one, there's the super rig that climbs up the pyramid, and it's got like 2 brass balls that clang into each other. And then there's the one scene where I think it's actually Bumblebee. He like pops open his oil and like pees on John Turturro
It
or something
pisses
like
on-
that. Yeah, so it's like
Yeah.
this one it came kind of close when she was changing out the tape deck, but I think it was more like his abs. But it was pretty close. But at least that it was missing, and I think in the first movie it was cute, and then like 2, 3, 4, 5, it was just like an annoying thing. Even having the two little annoying Transformers that like swing and they're like, "What's up, bitches?" Like, no, okay,
We're from the hood. You're like, oh, why, Michael Bay? Stop! What are you doing?
yeah. So I did appreciate that was missing. I was going to comment too on. I think this is going to sound funny. I think Haley Steinfeld is too good of an actress to be in this movie, and my reason for saying that is that she has a moment where she's screaming at her mom about. You found a replacement for Dad, but I haven't. And it's like, it always harkens me back to Wayne's World when he does like the fake Oscar speech where he has like the breakdown and like underneath it says like Oscar speech cut or something, like basically this is my scene I want you to play when I win the Oscar, because that was it for her. And I wonder if her direction was, okay, you're gonna have this this emotional break with your mom where you're gonna come to the realization that she's moved on but you can't move on, and then Steinfeld goes for it. But when you watch it linearly, it's such an overreaction to the scenario.
It's huge.
You're just like, this is great for you as an actress, but like in the scene it's too much. Not even like hormonal teenager too much, it's just in general like, you're a great actress. This isn't True Grit. Like, this is too far.
Oh yeah, it's a little 0 to 80 in their relationship. Like, it doesn't come out of the blue, but you're right. There's not that build up of those two kind of going tit for tat until it builds up to that.
It was over something. It wasn't when he wrecked the house. It was over something else, wasn't it?
No, I think it's when the mom was like, when he wrecked the house, and she's like, I gotta go get my car. The mom's like, no, you're not, and the mom's like, what's going on with you? You're just
she just like just hits it, like peeks out.
It feels like it was a moment though where they needed. It was one of those we need moments.
Oh, I think
after
in
the
that
script
moment,
is written, they're like,
we need
a moment where she really breaks down about her dad, because they established that like right out the gate with the morning dad thing, so we already knew that. And then they established like the dorky stepdad thing. I was just like, that's that's actually where I shut it off, was when she came out of the bathroom and then she sees him kissing. He's like, oh, we got caught. And that's where I was like, I'm watching Life Aquatic, I can't do this. So but then I started Overwatch from the beginning, because I was like, be fair. But that's where I shut off. But it's well played, because it's what it is. But that was the strength of the film, though, was how good of an actress she is, and how her connection to Bumblebee was actually felt real and genuine and actually sincere.
Yeah, it was that one scene though that it catches me, because it's maybe because I'm a robot, but just like way too much emotion for the moment. But I think I thought she did an amazing job prior and post of that. When she goes to defend Bumblebee, it doesn't feel foreign. When he's getting attacked and she dives in and basically faces down these two gods, and she's like, leave him alone. Like, that felt genuine and honest. That felt like that connection has been created and is deserved. So yeah, she did a super good job. It would be curious to see if this was the 80s, if they shot it like today, but in the 80s, like, would that have been like Elizabeth Shue? Or who would have been?
Yeah, she would have been on the list for sure.
In 1987.
Yeah, an actual 87.
Yeah, somewhere.
Demi Moore.
Well, no, not if she was 16 though. If she was supposed to be 18, wouldn't have been Elizabeth Shue.
Yeah,
because she was already. Well, when was Karate Kid?
That's where that came from. Was it felt very Karate Kid? Yeah.
Yeah.
But it just made me laugh. But yeah.
But I think if you understood Mom and Daughter,
which was funny too.
How so?
The Rickroll. They literally
she didn't
played...
like Morrissey, or Bumblebee didn't like Morrissey. I was like, I like that.
Yeah, no, but they played the Rick Astley song. They played "Never Want to Give You Up."
That's
but
right.
Yeah,
that's a great joke.
her interaction with her mom was super good. I think all that felt like genuine teenager angst.
Oh yeah.
Aside from the father being gone, kind of stuff, and I thought they did a great job of. She didn't appear to come from opportunity, so she worked at the hot dog stand. So you've already got that built-in loser status, and then she has the hunky boy with like the 3 slutty girls, and has her little embarrassing run-in moment, which really wasn't that bad, but like, it creates that thing, and then it all felt, because she was in another movie where she plays a high school kid who's trying to figure her life out or whatever. It's got Woody Harrelson, and I'll look it up, but it felt like that. It felt like she was taking
Hunger Games.
Yes, that's it. It felt like she was taking that with her, which I thought was, but no, I'm not sure where I'm going with this, other than I thought she did a great job. Sans that one scene, which I thought was just like somebody hitting the gas, maybe just due to some bad
great in that
direction.
Scene, though.
Yes, but
and you get the emotion, but I agree. I think they just didn't build up her and the mom having this friction. Like that friction didn't exist building up to this like blowout. And so
because they always had some pithy banter, which was good,
right?
But there was never just the because it would have. I think it would have been better if she had hated the stepdad, the Todd. I think if he was like abusive, which wouldn't have flown.
No, I think not.
No, but
I think he could be the same, but
him.
she could be a jerk towards him.
Yeah.
And then at the end, she kind of goes, "Okay, Todd, I'm being a jerk to you because you're not my dad, but that's not your fault." Like, he like it was he wasn't a jerk, so it's not like she had any real rage. Like he was giving it a shot. He was probably a decent dude, so that's why. Yeah, her having that animosity with her mom about moving on. It's like, well, it's not like she moved on to a terrible person.
Right.
She literally just didn't pick up the first guy that walked by. Like, this is a good dude. Like, settle down.
He might have been the first guy. Who knows?
No, that's fair.
Yeah. But he was just happy to be great.
Pamela Adlon. Yeah, she's got that
awesome.
show. Yeah, she's great. Yeah. The show that Louis C.K. produced. Oh, can we say his name? Sorry.
No, it's okay.
An actor that used to a comedian used to exist.
Have you
The
watched
Edge of
that,
17 was the movie I was talking about. That
Edge
Haley
of
Steinfeld
17.
Nice.
Okay.
Where she basically plays that like on the edge of 17, just an angsty high schooler, just with the world around her and thinking she's got it all under control, and then finding out she has none of it in her own control. They felt very similar character.
Yeah.
I guess, which I'm not mad at. It was good. That movie's really good too.
Okay. Well, okay. Nice.
Yeah. That's what we should do for one show. Is we should watch a movie that is definitely not our demographic.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Like something way out, but like highly acclaimed. And I'm not talking about like The Notebook or something like that. But we'll ask around. Like we should probably call up Selena again and be like, all right, so
what should we watch?
Human Centipede 2.
Yeah, that was right there.
Done that already.
That's what I was thinking of.
I watched the first one and the second one.
I went to that party. I don't need to relive that moment.
It was a good party.
Well, it depends where you are in the train, I guess.
Yeah, I was the
in
last
the peed.
I
was the caboose.
I was the caboose. Yeah, it's an interesting movie though. If you really think about it,
it's an interesting idea.
Yeah, it is an interesting idea. Fascinating.
It's fresh. You don't watch it and go,
I can't
this old
segue
story.
back from that. I got no way to swing back from that.
Yeah, you don't sit there and complain about it. You don't say that there were acting moments that were too good in the Human Centipede. There's a lot of things to say, but you don't say that.
What were your thoughts on the very Men in Black gooing of humans by the Decepticons? Like instead of them obviously with weapons that could just eviscerate us, it was just like a popping, like a goo pop. It felt very Men in Black of like, how do I put blood on the scene but no blood on the scene?
Right.
How do I illustrate this? What do you guys think?
Well, it felt like there was an opportunity to like not like show that they were bad guys, but not have quote unquote violence. You know, it was like if you just vaporize the human, then you don't have to worry about it. And it was comical. You know, I like how they pop or whatever he said. So yeah, I mean it was you know me and violence, but it was fine. It was
well.
fine,
That's why I wanted to know, because I know that if he had, like, they obviously have very large guns. You know, that's illustrated throughout the whole thing. They have big guns, which could do a lot of damage. That's why I was curious with your stint on violence and the comments on the violence and the other ones, how this as a mechanism to show that, yes, they're bad, but not just like impaling him into the ground with a 6-foot spear or something like that. They're just like, boop, little frequency, and they.
Yeah. For me,
if that
it was
felt
more,
better or worse.
No, it's, you know, I mean, you had to show that they were bad guys, I guess, somehow, but in the most family-friendly way. So it wasn't as extreme as you know, the just ridiculous violence of Guardians of the Galaxy, but it also wasn't, you know, the Hateful Eight. So
Yeah, it wasn't a blood explosion. It wasn't like Tremors, you know, whenever they blow one of those up and just everyone gets splats on them. Yeah.
right, yeah.
Maybe that would have been good if the girlfriend from the redneck dude who spent all their money on the car, if he like splattered all over her and she's like, ugh.
Right. That is kind of funny.
Yeah, that'd still be funny. I don't know if it'd be, it could still be family friendly. That's right,
I feel
in
like,
PG-13.
I mean, if you go back
slide.
to 80s actual 80s movies and some of that stuff, yeah, sometimes those moments were a bit much. Or, you know, we talked about Karate Kid a little bit, and there's some of that. I felt like it had some of those Karate Kid-esque moments to it, but like we said last week or whatever it was, watch Karate Kid again and you start to go, like, that was bad. Like, the whole scene, Mr. Miyagi comes in and like beats the hell out of like 4 high school dudes and just stuff like that, where you're like, this isn't okay.
Wait,
Like,
what?
yeah,
When you're a little
era.
kid watching, you're like, because those kids are adults, frankly, in my eyes.
Yeah.
And then when
you
you're older,
turn
you go,
into a 40-year-old, you're like, that's not good.
That's assault. You got to press charges.
Yeah, exactly.
They're minors.
Yeah. And, like, I understand why the country club people didn't like Daniel. He was a dork. You know, he was dirty. He was a dirty kid.
Off brand.
Yeah, very off brand.
I thought it was funny too, the whole interaction with like the next door neighbor and like the memo, which thanks for that name. But how he's trying to like psych himself up to talk to her, and at the very end they're supposed to go like onto like the cliffside and have their little moment, and the camera's down and he tries to hold her hand and she's like, oh no, we're not there yet, and then like looks at him like,
yeah, I didn't know what that meant. What was that trying to say? Was it trying to say was it trying to empower her as a character, as a female character? Was it being mean to the poor minority
like,
kid? Like, what was
friend
going
zone
on? Yeah, what was going on?
you
with
kissed
that?
me, it was on the cheek. Yeah. It did have a weird weight of not being like the stereotypical, we just saved the world, let's make out, you know, having her be like, whoa, bro, easy there, pal.
Again, I think and talking about brand, I think the brand of this movie again is that very we're not going to go too far in any one direction. So so these kids like each other and they'll kiss later, but not in this movie. It's going to be sweet. We're keeping this sweet. Your mom will be happy.
They're going to feed
say,
each other corn
look,
dogs.
They like
So they don't have
but
like
they didn't
the
talk.
dads that go see Transformers, and then all I can talk about is Megan Fox.
Right. Which
Yeah,
that was-
because half of the camera moves are just like up her rear end. Yeah.
It's
And
like they got
there's a little
the
transformer and he's trying to molest her. Yeah. Oh.
it's like they got the
yeah.
cameraman
How about
from the NFL whose sweet job it is just to film the cheerleaders on the sideline. Like, I'm gonna get down 2 feet off the ground, point the camera up. Don't worry, girls, it'll be fine.
That's
you remember,
cool.
talk about different eras too, where, I mean, that, like, there's still a lot. I mean, obviously there's still tons of that, but I remember growing up as a kid, you know, we were Cubs fans as kids because we didn't have a baseball team here.
Yep.
And my part of town got WGN. So that's how I grew up as a Cubs fan. and
okay.
yeah, so and Harry Carey is this like really charismatic
Iconic.
dude,
yeah.
and so you just sort of get into the whole thing, but one thing that the Cubs games would do is at some point in time throughout the game they would
Lose?
find besides lose, although they would find girls in bikinis in the stands and just film them dancing and stuff, and that was like part of the vibe of Wrigley Field as a kid. And so when I was a kid, I was like, yeah, I love that part because I was like 12 or whatever. That sounds great. And now I'm like, that was real not okay.
That was wrong.
Yeah, 'cause I kind of want to go back and see what he and Steve Stone were saying about those girls and see how truly
No,
bad
you don't.
it was. Yeah,
You don't want to know.
You don't want to lose the love for him.
There's small tangent, but same thing. Artie Lang and Norm Macdonald hung out with what's his name? The guy he did the announcing in Big League, and he was on Mr. Belvedere.
Oh yeah, Bob Uecker.
Bob Uecker. Yeah.
Bob Uecker.
And so they have these stories of Bob Uecker where it's like they went up in the box and they're talking to him and he's like, yeah, doing his thing, blah, blah, blah. And then he would like push a button where he's not live and he would just say like vile things to them. And,
yeah.
But hey, check out that chick. Look at the rack
believe
on
it.
her, blah, 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 blah. And then back to, all right, we're back at the bottom of the eighth there. And back and forth. And they told it on Stern and like Bob Uecker was like, what are you doing? Don't tell these stories.
Did you ever watch Norm Macdonald Has a Show?
Which one is that?
The
Sports show or no?
newish the new Netflix one that came out last
the
year.
Netflix one where they did a season, then they went, oh wait, we forget it's Norm Macdonald and he refuses to do what we want him to do.
Go watch like specifically the what's her name?
Fonda one? Or
No,
which one?
from
Drew Barrymore.
Drew Barrymore. Yeah, like the girl from E.T. Yeah, it's gross. He is gross because he just continually just calls her dear and darling, and he's always like grabbing her and like just holding her hand and stuff. And you're just like, even then, it was like, dude, you can't do that. Like you can't. Like this was only like a year and a half ago.
Current?
Yeah,
It was last year.
It was last year. Yeah. Hang on, I gotta check my thing here. What's
You gotta
going on?
turn on the sun, apparently.
Here comes the sun.
Gotta make sure.
For our listening audience, Matt just opened up a browser on his laptop
Yeah, you're welcome.
or computer, and it blasted out the camera.
And his camera went, what's happening?
Sorry, everybody. I was just checking
it wasn't that
It's saying it's running low on memory, but I don't know what kind of memory it needs because I got everything going to the right places. I just want to make sure we don't lose some recording or whatever. But
It's probably a partition
probably okay.
or
but
RAM.
But yeah, but I mean, the world has changed. The world has changed a lot in the last couple of years. You know what's also interesting? We're going way off topic. Not off topic. Tangent. So I read this book like 3 years ago called Down and Dirty Pictures. And it's a very long, very, very long book that's essentially an expose. At the core of it is, so it's all about the rise of Miramax and the sort of the rise of independent film. But the through line that it continues to come back to, because it's a great book and it's told really well, where it bounces back and forth, where it's like, oh, here's what's going on in Lionsgate, and here's what's going on in Miramax, and then it bounces kind of back and forth and kind of showing you what's going on in the independent film. But it's just constant about how awful Harvey Weinstein is. And I think the book was
written?
Sorry.
Like mid 2000s probably.
Before
2005, 2006. And so I had read this book 4 years ago, and it was well known already that he was a giant douche and was what he was. But this book was so specific and just told stories. But part of the book was also like, this is a story. I'm telling this without authorization by anyone at Miramax, anyone at these places.
Yeah.
Just so you know, this is just, I'm basically retelling what people have told me. And so when it all came out, no one mentioned this entire book that was all about all of this. It was like, this is how it's been for basically 20 years. a guy's written this 400-page book about it, and no one bothered saying anything until now. It was fascinating, but the world has changed so much in the last 3 years. Obviously not anywhere near where we want it to be, but so far as to the point where I'm watching Drew Barrymore basically get hit on by Norm Macdonald for 45 minutes, and I feel like throwing up the whole time.
Huh, that's interesting. I watched it. I didn't feel that. I guess, I should go back and watch it again. Huh.
Maybe it's because I want him to hit on me.
He does, though, with Jane Fonda. He has her on, and he straight up is like, "May I kiss you?" And she's like, "Yeah, whatever." And they kiss. So he totally goes for Jane Fonda. Yeah. But I couldn't remember him going for Drew Barrymore. Wow.
Yeah. It was just more of that skeezy grossness thing. Like Jane Fonda seems more thing. Like, it's just like that gross old
Jane's,
man and deer and honey and grabbing her, and just like, I didn't like it. Made me uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
This guy sounds like a real jerk.
Yeah, he is.
Turn one of his jokes on himself. There we go.
So
Bumblebee.
So anyways, about Bumblebee. Yeah, I don't think that there's much more that could be said about this film. It was fine.
No. I mean, there's stuff, you poke holes in it, but it's not. It was never meant to be a contender for best film.
No.
It's just, you like Transformers? Cool. You like the 80s? Cool. You want to blow an hour and 45 minutes and work through a box of popcorn? Yeah. Hey, here you go.
Mm-hmm. And feel not dirty about it at the end. Yeah.
Yeah. Here you go.
Mm-hmm. What did you give it, Nico? What did you rate it?
I think I gave it a 4 out of 5, but I asterisked that with nominations for visual effects, sound editing, the technical awards. On my system, it got a 4 out of 5. So it deserved nomination because, like I said, the clarity and detail of the Decepticons and the Autobots is so good that I would be remiss to give it a bad rating, because it's worth it just to see that. Like, I'll be honest, ignore the story, just go see the animation in this movie because it's amazing. It is so well done, and it doesn't have the flaws that the other ones did, where at least the models for Bumblebee, the parts almost always stayed in the same place, whereas in the other ones, every time you saw Optimus Prime, a window was in a different area, and different, like, just parts were everywhere every single time. And it's like, well, that's not how the toy, like, that's the thing, that's not how the toy worked. Like,
the toy wasn't undo the busy looking. Yeah,
you don't undo the toy, and then also the tires over there now. It's they kept all the pieces together, and they're even smart enough a couple times to make jokes in this one about his pieces, where, like, when he tries to sneak through the door after he knocks it off the hinge, and he he does that mini transformation so he can squeeze through the door, and then there's the one where they're trying to leave, and he's Bumblebee on top, but then has like a Segway. He's still got the wheels on the bottom, and then as he's leaving, he's got his little doors out, and he hits it on the wall, and he's like, "Meow," and he like tucks him in. So that's clever. That's really well done. So go see it or rent it because of the animation. Don't expect to be blown away like Life Aquatic or anything. But yeah, it's if you want a good, amazing CG fighting robots movie.
Yeah, with some heart. Yeah, whether you like the heart or not, it's got heart for sure. So
there were plenty of Jeffy moments.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's that, I feel like every time I go and see a movie, there were 5 trailers before every movie, and it was like the same. It was the kid and their dog, essentially.
Right.
And this is a kid and their dog movie.
Yeah.
But it's, in that sense, it does well. Am I going to watch the other 50 of that same type? No, but I watched this one. I enjoyed it. And there were female Transformers. One of them being the main villain.
Yeah,
so, the leader.
There you go.
Yeah.
Except they made her a bad guy.
Yeah.
Which is okay.
Well, I mean,
but that's cool too.
That's all right,
Ladies can be evil.
It passed the Bechdel test. They had a conversation. The 2 females having a conversation that wasn't about a man.
What's sorry, real quick. The first one that was I think they made him an F4 Phantom. Is that Starscream?
Yeah.
That's supposed to be
Well, no,
Starscream.
I don't think that the ones that Bumblebee fought had recognized. I don't think they were like it wasn't like Starscream or yeah. I think they were just either new characters or new made up characters.
Okay.
Just to literally like create that separation of this is not those other films kind of thing. But I mean, they did have some of the classics, like the guy with the little cassette tape that unfolds and like
that guy was so cool when I was a kid. Oh my god!
Oh, absolutely.
You're like,
that's
it's got a cassette player. Whoa.
Yeah, that's a nostalgia bomb.
Does it play?
Yeah.
That was like show and tell. I didn't have that one myself. Somebody on the chat or somebody brought it in. I was like, whoa.
And then I stole it.
And then it disappeared.
I went to his locker and it got legs.
That's what made the movie fun,
It
though,
Walkmaned away.
is they nailed that part of it, though. What made the toys cool to us were that they were those 80s things, the F4 Phantom and the Huey and the things that were that were of the day. So that's one thing that the movie nailed was that the nostalgia aspect of Transformers was pretty well carried through the entire film.
Right.
Yeah.
And two, I will say, if I would put a bow on this movie, I would say this movie, the fact that Bumblebee is this little humble Volkswagen Bug is like a metaphor for what this movie is compared to the other ones, where he's like this flashy Corvette and revving and smashing into stuff.
Yeah,
that's the perfect way to say, hey, yeah, this is what this movie is. It's a little Volkswagen Bug.
That's a great point.
It's little and charming.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, I think that they even released the new version of the Camaro with the first Transformers movie. Like that's how tied in it was.
Yeah, they getting that
commerce
advertising money
right out the gate. Yeah. So that's an excellent point. I didn't even put that metaphor together. How did you come up with that? That was a good one.
Because I'm just so smart.
So intelligent.
Smarter than you. That's how it works.
Somehow seeped in my brain before this.
Well, with that, I want to thank you all for listening. Thanks for stopping by to the Smoking Hot Nerds podcast. The shortest one we've ever done.
I know. Look at us being concise.
Concise and quick about it. But, Eric's got to work in the morning, so.
It's true.
Yeah.
Oof.
Got to push the merch.
Push the merch. Click
you're gonna walk down that toy aisle and see the clearance Bumblebee. Be like, I got you.
Yeah, if they got
There's an Optimus Prime from some version of something. Yeah.
Yeah? Nice.
Yeah, maybe it's from this movie. I don't know. Thing with toys, it's like wave 80 with every toy franchise. You're like, I don't know whether this is from a comic spin-off. I don't know.
Then they got the Black Series Star Wars little ones, and then they got the Black Series big ones.
The big ones. And now there's Ghostbuster that are like Black Series, but they're called Plasma Series that are about to drop.
Hey, yo. How do they look?
The sculpts look good. I mean, they're definitely smaller and simpler than some of the others that have come out recently, but the sculpts are good.
Nice. Be worth taking a look at it.
Maybe we'll get them at Target, but I don't think my Target.
Yeah.
I have a wee Target.
We
have a little Target. Just a wee Target.
Is it like a multiple level Target?
It is, yeah. It used to be a furniture store.
Yeah. I love those. You okay?
I don't know if I've ever been in a multi-level Target.
Yeah, that's had a few of
the
those.
City
in LA.
Targets.
Yeah, City Targets.
Sure.
And do you have the you put the cart in the cart elevator? Do you have those?
There's an elevator for the carts, yeah.
Like where it hooks into the front of the cart and then it pulls it up. Well, it's an escalator for the carts.
No.
Yeah.
No, I've seen that at some of the supermarkets around here, but this one just has a elevator.
The one in Sherman Oaks has a cart escalator, so you just put your cart there and it takes it up as you ride next to it. It's pretty cool. Yeah. So all you have to do is go to the San Fernando Valley and you'll see one. That's all you got to do.
Nice. That's it. Piece of cake. 4.5 hour drive.
Do you make Transformer sounds the whole time?
That's what I make.
Whap, 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 whap.
Exactly. Well, thanks for listening, folks. We'll see you next week.
Bye bye.
Ta-ta.